The 8-ounce steak sizzled on the grill, creating a mouth-watering aroma around the cozy suburban garden. Bill took the tongs and flipped the meat over, the juices hissing as they hit the open flames below. Bill subconsciously licked his lips, hunger rumbling through his stomach. The air was sweltering despite the summer breeze, and a bead of sweat trickled down the back of Bill's exposed neck. It was the perfect weather for the juicy, tender steak he'd bought fresh this morning. As Bill prodded the meat with the tongs, trying to gauge how well it was cooked, a shadow fell suddenly over the lawn. The sweat cooled against Bill's skin, and the breeze picked up, ruffling the hem of his shorts. The kids across the street suddenly started yelling, and Bill gritted his teeth. Those youngsters always had spoiled his peace and quiet. But a moment later, more voices joined in, shouting and yelling in disbelief, until there was a cacophony of noise rumbling down the street. Bill looked up, startled. What was going on? More than half a dozen of his neighbors had congregated on the streets, their faces raised to the sky. When Bill lifted his eyes too, the tongs clattered from his fingers to the ground. The sky had gone dark. Thick, rolling clouds moved toward them, the likes of which Bill had never seen before. They moved like something alive, almost as though they were getting closer to the earth, descending upon them like... As the clouds grew closer, Bill realized they weren't clouds at all. The smell of burning tickled Bill's nose as the steak burned on the grill, but he could hardly take his eyes off of the sky. Cows. They were cows. Hundreds, possibly thousands of them flying over the neighborhood. Their bodies were packed densely together, completely blocking out the sun and creating a shadow that stretched on for miles. Wind whipped across the lawn, raking a chill over Bill's body as he stood frozen in complete shock, staring at the multitude of cattle above him. What was happening? Where had they all come from? As the cows completely covered the sky, a low, piercing struck the air like thunder, and all at once it began to rain. Thick, white droplets of milk thudded to the ground, soaking the grass around Bill's feet and collecting into puddles along the pavement. The flames on the grill were doused out by a thin curl of smoke, and his neighbors jerked into action, trying to rush inside for shelter. The streets filled rapidly. It was just like the flash floods they sometimes got in the summer, only it was raining gallons and gallons of milk. The stream became a torrent and the drains quickly clogged, leaving milk to fill the streets. As the milk level began to rise, people found it difficult to stay on their feet. It was like a tidal wave sweeping them along in its ruthless embrace. Bill turned and fled to his garage, struggling to wade through the thick curtain of milk slashing down on him from the cows above. Fumbling with the latch, he threw open the garage door and ducked inside. Milk immediately began to spill in after him, surging down the driveway into the deluge. Without wasting a second, Bill went to the tarp-covered shadow in the corner and tore the material free, unearthing a wooden rowboat. He hadn't taken the boat out in a few years, but he sure as hell was glad that he'd kept it in good condition. Good, working condition. He would need it to survive this unnatural flood. Pushing it out onto the tide of milk, Bill raised the paddles and began to row. The bottom of the paddle scraped against the garage floor, and then he was taken by a wave, ferried along the driveway and out onto the street. The milk level had now risen as high as his garden fence, and it was still coming down, fast and unrelenting. The cows flew on, more of them spilling out of the sky as though they were never ending. People screamed and yelled as they were dragged by the currents, pulled down beneath the surface. Bill saw hands reaching for him, crying for help, but he ignored them all, rowing as hard as he could. He couldn't save them now. He had to get himself out of here. A pair of hands grabbed at the boat. One of Bill's neighbors tried to grapple himself onto the boat with him. Raising a paddle, Bill hit him over the head and watched the man slide back into the milk. The boat was only big enough for one person, and he couldn't risk it sinking for another passenger weighing it down. He rowed as quickly as he could down the street, going past all the neighbors he had known for years. Faces peered at him out of upper windows, crying for help as milk rose, trapping them inside. Yet he went on. Bodies began to rise to the surface, bumping against the sides of the boat, bloated and pale. The children he had seen earlier, playing with their garden, floated alongside him, dragged along by the current. Bill grimaced, pushing them away with the tip of his paddle. There was nothing he could have done. The cows had come so suddenly, and without warning. There had been no time to do anything except grab the boat and get as far away as possible. As he reached the end of the street, more bodies floated toward him, eyes and mouths wide opened, their skin pale with milk residue. Using the paddle to navigate himself around the corner, Bill saw safety ahead. But he never got that far. The moment the cows realized one of the humans was getting away, they targeted him. Dozens of rock-hard cow manure tumbled out of the sky, pummeling Bill with ferocious abandon. As it piled up around him, the boat grew too heavy and began to sink, filling rapidly with milk. Then the boat went under completely, dragging Bill after it. The street below grew still. Nobody was left alive to move. As the cows flew onward to the next neighborhood, Bill's body buoyed to the surface, his mouth open, milk spilling out of his eyes and nostrils, dribbling down his chin. He, like the rest of his neighbors, was dead. A few days after the cows had first appeared, the milk flood finally began to recede. The bodies of the cows' victims were swept along by the retreating tides into old, rotting fields where their fluids fed the earth. Everywhere, new grass, as green as the finest jade, began to sprout. Fed by the rich nutrients of the cow's milk, it grew strong and healthy, breaking up through the pavement to start a new life. It cracked the flagstones, wormed through the floorboards, created new fields across the crumbling remnants of human civilization, until the whole world was covered in fresh, green grass. With the threat of the humans gone, the cows could live in peace. The earth, covered in food, in greenery, the air was cleaner. The cows descended upon their new home, ready to begin a new era. Oh my god, Scare in the Box. You always blow my mind with how well you write stories, even if they are as idiotic, humorous, and amazing as that one was. As always, Scare in a Box, fantastic author. Seriously, go check out his stuff. I have yet to be disappointed by a story that he's written. I actually have one more in the works coming down, so keep a wait out for that one. It's gonna be good. Hype, hype. Thanks for listening. Until next time, pieces.